Hello, everyone, and welcome to another episode of Broken Beautiful Me Stories of Hope, Gratitude, and Resilience. I'm your host, Kelly Buckley, and today I am so honored to have as our guest Scott MacGregor. He is the founder and CEO of Something New LLC, the founder of the Outlier Project, publisher and editor in chief of Outlier Magazine, 4 times author of Standing O series, and a record 8-time winner of American Business Award for Innovation. Something New LLC is one of the fastest growing talent strategy companies in the country. Beyond finding clients exceptional talent, Something New's advisory services, Something New Labs, save companies millions of dollars by teaching and providing proprietary tools centered on the 3 pillars of an effective people strategy: talent acquisition, onboarding, and retention. MacGregor's belief that good companies do good things led him to establish Something Good, the social mission component of Something New. Welcome, Scott. It's so nice to have you here.
Kelly, it is an absolute honor, and I love what you're doing through your podcast and through all the other work that you're doing. So it's an absolute honor. Thank you.
Thank you. So, for our audience who may not know about you and your work, can you share the story behind you founding Something New? So, what led you and inspired you to start the company?
Sure. I was a chief revenue officer for a company that I had helped grow from about 5 employees to 300. And, during substantial growth, I was drinking from a fire hose every day and trying to figure out things that I could outsource. And talent acquisition seemed like a logical thing to outsource. We were growing very quickly. So every headhunter out there was calling and promising that they could deliver great talent to us. And over the course of 17 years, I realized that the recruiting industry, headhunters, it was a very antiquated, very broken industry. And I knew I could build a better mousetrap. And I knew that at the end of the day, people are the most important asset that a company has. So that's how Something New came about. It was just to solve the problems that I was running into every day. And we're incredibly blessed, 8 straight American Business Awards for Innovation. So we really have built something that is very, very unique. And then subsequently have built a very large community, the Outlier Project, and have built a magazine, Outlier Magazine, that's just been a blast.
That's so wonderful. So when I was looking at Something New, it's very clear in everything on the website that your approach is people over everything, that people are so important.
Mm-hmm.
And I agree with that 100%. So do you think leaders are realizing now the importance of a healthy, happy workplace and kind of shifting towards a new way of looking at building and growing a productive team?
Yes, but I would say painfully slow. Painfully slow. It's very, very interesting. So in Something New, we deal with hypergrowth startups. So we're dealing with founders and CEOs. And I typically ask them 3 questions. And the first question is, what's your biggest expense? And 100% of the time they tell me labor, people.
Yep.
I say, okay, so your number 1 expense is people. Every company on planet Earth wants to get to the next level. And the next level could mean a milestone revenue number. It could mean an acquisition. It could mean a lot of different things, but every company wants to get to a next level. So the next question is, what do you need to do to get to that next level? Most of the time, not all the time, but most of the time, the answer that I get has something to do with people. Say, okay, your biggest expense is people. The thing that you need to do to get to the next level has to do with people. The next question is where the wheels come off. Because when I say, how often do you and your executive leadership team sit down and talk intentionally about your people strategy? The answer is not very often. So there's a massive disconnect
Mm-hmm.
of leaders that understand it's their biggest expense. They understand it's what it will take them to the next level, but they
Yeah.
don't really put a lot in place um, to make that the central theme of their company. At the end of the day, your company will succeed or fail, or the extent that it will succeed or fail is predicated on your people to a giant factor over your go-to-market strategy or anything else that you could be working on. But if you audited most founder and CEOs' calendars, you would find that they spend most of their time in meetings talking about things that have nothing to do with their people strategy, even though it's the most important thing you have to do. So, long-winded way to say, I think we're making a little bit of progress, but we have a long, long way to go.
Hmm. Do you think, and what role has COVID played in that? What have you seen post COVID? Well, I mean, COVID's still here, but like post shutdown, in terms of businesses, do you think that that is giving leaders an opportunity to make that shift because everybody was remote. Now some people are remote, some people are in person. What's your thoughts on the landscape of business since
Yeah,
COVID?
I think it's COVID has forced people into some uncomfortable things that they wouldn't not have done were it not for COVID. And remote is probably the most prominent that they've had to provide flexibility and trust in their workforce.
Hmm.
For me, it's a little bit different. So 27 years ago, I set up a 40-person national account manager team that was fully remote 27 years ago.
Really?
People act as if working remote is this brand new fangled thing. It's something I did almost 30 years ago. You have to think about it differently, but it was a game changer for us back in the day. It allowed us to grow exponentially. So I do think, COVID gave a lot of people force them into a situation where they had to provide a lot more flexibility, had to think about work-life balance, had to think about things that maybe they weren't thinking about before. And I think it also made employees think differently about their work.
Hmm.
We're now starting to see a shift back with Amazon, just announcing that workers need to come back into the office 5 days a week. Um,
Yeah.
you know, Anytime the pendulum swings to an extreme, it's probably not good. The balance is
Hmm.
always somewhere in the middle, and we need to come to that equilibrium where everybody wins. So it's a very interesting time.
It is. It's so funny that you say that. That was something my father always used to say to me, that the world is not black and white, Kelly. Solutions are not black and white. The solution is always right in the
Right.
middle. And it takes collaboration both from the leader and the employee. It takes trust. So
Yep.
what does a healthy workplace look like?
Uh, you just nailed it. Trust.
Yeah.
You have to trust your people, but you have to hire trustworthy people. Um,
Yes.
you have to really understand how to hire top talent. Um, there's so many things that companies have no idea. I would say 90% of people that are interviewing and making decisions on who to hire are
Hmm.
wildly unqualified to do it. It's
Yeah.
like a doctor that never went to med school. You would never go to a doctor that didn't go to med school and say, diagnose me and put me on a track to get healthy. But yet
Right.
companies consistently have people that are wildly unqualified to evaluate talent.
Hmm.
That's Kelly, that's crazy, but
It
that's the
is.
world we live in.
Yeah.
People do are Most leaders became leaders sometimes out of default. They just, matured into this role, but do they know how to interview people? Do they use scorecarding? Do they really understand what's truly valuable? It's very interesting when I talk to people about what are you looking for in this employee, whether it's a chief revenue officer, a chief marketing officer, a individual contributor, whatever the case may be. I often hear things that are very measurable: industry experience, years of experience, education, things like that. Things that at the end of the day are kind of meaningless if you stack them up against the things that really make a great employee: work ethic, discipline, resiliency, empathy. But how do you measure all of those things? Most people that are interviewing folks, they're not even vetting for those things. But at the end of the day, those are the things that will make a great employee, or if you don't have them, an employee that is really not going to be a great fit for your company.
Hmm. I know when I first started in management and was interviewing people, I always kind of tried to trust my gut in terms of their emotional intelligence and what I thought, because I always, in healthcare, obviously you have to have training that is very specific to your role.
Sure.
But I also felt like, that personality of a person that I was hiring for, like a leadership person for the front lines, that it was so important that they be empathetic because of what nurses feel every day in what they deal with. But that is not always the case. I would agree. I want to shift now to talk. It's still on the work topic, but a great deal of my work is with the bereaved, and
Sure.
I find that that 3-day bereavement leave, that's a joke to me, right? I just find that hilarious. Um, but I find we can put grief in its compartment and we feel like we need to keep it there. And when we enter into the workplace, we're supposed to keep that in at home. That's not realistic, right? It's, grief bleeds into every area of your life. So, what do you say to both the employee who's grieving and the leader who's managing that employee about how they can work through that? What practical advice can you give them, to work through it and still be productive?
Part of it's just the golden rule. It's, how would you want to be treated in that situation? And to your point earlier, this magical thinking that when somebody walks through the door of a business, that all of a sudden they're not a mom, a dad, a grieving, spouse, or whatever the case may be, is just, it's lunacy. We walk in with all of those things. We're just now in a different environment. And, you just have to recognize that that human being is, they're going home to kids and pets and all kinds of other obligations that have nothing to do with work. But we have to deal with the whole human.
Yeah.
And I think so many people just don't think of that. They just think of what's the task at hand? What do we need to do from a business perspective? But when you start to really uh, think about people as a human being, and people that have all kinds of struggles and challenges that they have to deal with outside of the office, it just changes the dynamic. Some of it is just having conversations about those challenges that may seem to have nothing to do with work, but I think they kind of have everything to do with the way that people show up at work.
Absolutely. Um, what about you? Have you, at a time in your life, facing adversity and managing that with both your personal and professional life, has that kind of does that play into the work that you do now? The lessons that you learned from tough times in your own life?
Oh, 100%. I grew up very poor. So I grew up poor in an affluent town. So I stuck out like a sore thumb. That definitely shaped me to a degree. I had, a family that was very, very dysfunctional in certain ways. You know, without going into excruciating detail, that was a challenge to move through. I've had two sons that had drug issues, and one, uh, who's battled back from heroin addiction and been
Mm.
homeless and in jail and all kinds of adversities. When I was 40 years old, I was diagnosed with something called Brugada syndrome, which is also known as sudden unexpected death syndrome, which is not exactly something that you want to hear that you have. So there is no cure and there are no symptoms. So the only thing you can do is have a defibrillator implanted in your chest with wires to your heart. So at 40 years old, somebody who was a college athlete and was an athlete my whole life and very, very healthy. That's what I had to do. And, so I've lived, I'm 56 now. So I've lived the last 16 years knowing that I have this condition that without warning, the only symptom is you die.
Mm,
So I live with that every single day, but I don't dwell on it.
right.
And I've come to realize adversity is a gift. Um, and it doesn't mean that I wish that any of these things happened, but adversity is truly a gift. And in the Outlier Project, we just yesterday had a gentleman on. His name's Austin Hatch. And Austin was a basketball player at the University of Michigan and was in two different plane crashes. The first plane crash, he lost his mother and he lost his sister. In the second plane crash, he lost his father, his stepmother, and another sibling, and he was in a coma for 2.5 months.
Oh,
So it's just an example, but when you get to know Austin, who you should definitely have on your podcast, um, he's the most resilient, most upbeat, most grateful person, despite the fact that he's lost his entire family, almost lost his own life, but
yeah.
still looks through the lens of gratitude every single day.
Oh my gosh. I mean, your story and his story, I'm just listening to them, and that is the very reason that I am here with you today, is to share stories and show people that there is a way through and there is a way back to the light, no matter what has happened. I
Yep.
really appreciate your honesty about your struggles, and I know that we talked before the recording about loss as well. It does give you a very different perspective. And I recently chatted with Dr. Eben Alexander, and he called that the gifts of desperation. And I thought that that was just a great way to put it, because
Mhm.
I too
Yeah.
felt that, completely broken. And, it was a good day if I could go to the mailbox, to appreciating life every day and seeing the things that I did not notice before. And that
Yeah.
happens when you are taken down to your core and you have to crawl back. That's what you really see. Um, so I want you to tell me more and tell our audience more about the Outlier Project, because this is so beautiful. And I just want everybody to know about it. So tell me more.
Yeah, I grew up, as I said, I grew up poor in a very affluent town. I was a super curious kid. I knew from a very early age that I thought differently from everybody else. I just thought differently. But
Mhm.
when you're a kid, you when you realize that you think differently, you just think you're weird. Um,
Yeah.
you're like, I don't see things the same way other people see things. And so I think I was an outlier from birth. Um, Flash forward into kind of my professional life, I was always a contrarian. So when the thundering herd was going left, I intuitively wanted to go right. I just never wanted to go with the thundering herd. So in that contrarian mindset, I was hitting levels of success that others were not. And I
Hmm.
realized very quickly that the secret to success is taking the road less traveled.
Yeah.
Um, but people intuitively, they think safety in numbers. If everyone's doing this, this is the way I'm going to do it. I realized in order to be successful in business, you have to show up differently. Like if you want a successful podcast, you better have a podcast that's different from everybody else's. If you want to have success in business, you have to show up differently. Otherwise, you're vanilla. You're like everybody else. You don't stand out.
Yep.
And I realized that there were a lot of people that felt the same way. They felt maybe misunderstood at points in their lives. They felt like outliers. They thought a little bit differently. And I thought, what if we could create a space for them? And then, another, I guess, unique component of there's not a lot of unique things about me, but my friend group is very unique. So I have I'm a collector of unique friends. So my friends are gold medal Olympians and New York Times bestsellers and Navy SEALs and CEOs of billion-dollar companies and just the most amazing people on the planet. And I thought, wouldn't it be cool if I could give people access to the same people that if I'm having a personal or professional problem, the level of people that I can call on the phone and say, hey, coach, or hey, whoever, here's what I'm dealing with. What would you do? And I can get this incredible sage advice from them. I thought, boy, wouldn't it be cool if I could give people that same opportunity? And that's what we've done through the Outlier Project is we've given people access to folks that they would never have access to. Super Bowl winning coaches like Coach Dick Vermeil, the founder of Reebok, Joe Foster, the founder of North Face, Hap Claw, or Olympic gold medalists like Brandy Chastain, or any of these amazing people that most people just would never have access to. We give people access to all of them. So it's the most professional fun I've ever had my entire life. We have 750 members in 35 countries,
Yeah.
and growing like a weed. So it's just absolute joy.
That is amazing. It sounds like such a place of creativity and innovation, and I mean, what a spot to go if you are looking to learn, on your own journey.
Yeah. In a very untraditional setting. Like today, we have a futurist who's one of our top advisors coming on. So we have a futurist kind of in residence, Alacia Abate, who's one of the top futurists in the country. And she's going to come on and talk about, what we should be looking at, the trends that are coming, because so often we look in the rearview mirror as opposed to looking at
Yeah.
what's coming. So just a ton of like really interesting people that we get to interact and learn from. But very untraditional. It's a very
Yeah.
untraditional community, but you would expect that, I think, from the Outlier Project.
Well, and I think untraditional is good. I think that we need to be looking at new ways of learning and new ways of approaching business. I think that we're at a kind of a turning point for a lot of things in this world right now. So different is good. Um, let's move into something good, because this is something I also was looking at and just so impressed with you and your work. So something good's about creating a positive impact, right? So you've
Mhm.
integrated that kindness component. So tell people what something good is, and maybe give
Sure.
us an example of some of the more meaningful projects that you've worked on.
Sure. So in each business that I've established, giving back is incredibly important to me. So in something new, we have a component called something good. And in the Outlier project, we have something called top cares. Essentially, these are the components where we give back. And we give back in some very unique ways, and we give back in some very traditional ways. But it started really at something new. Giving back was one of the main reasons why I started the company, but I knew I had a problem right away. I knew I was going to bootstrap the company. So I am a uh, unabashed control freak. So I did not want to take outside funding because I don't want anybody to tell me what to do. So I knew I was going to bootstrap the company. So the problem was I'm putting all the money that I'm making back into the company, and which doesn't leave me the opportunity to write big checks to these organizations that I think are doing great work to change our world. So I thought, oh boy, what am I going to do? And I realized that my assets were not in my bank account, but my assets were my relationships. So I asked 52 of my friends if they would write a chapter of gratitude for a life lesson learned, and I would put it in a book called Standing O, and I would give 100% of the proceeds to charity. So Dick Vermeil, who won a Super Bowl with the Rams and is in the Football Hall of Fame, wrote the foreword. Tiki Barber, who is an all-time great running back for the New York Giants, wrote the cover quote, and then 52 amazing people like the Jesse Itzlers of the world who sold his NetJets company to Warren Buffett and sold Zico water to Coca-Cola and married Sarah Blakely, the founder of Spanx, wrote chapters of gratitude, and we gave all the money to charity. And I said, boy, that worked well. So let's do it again. So I wrote a book called Standing O Encore,
Yeah.
and then wrote a book called Standing O Salute, which was for the military. Both of my boys served in the military, so I have a big affinity for the military. And then wrote a book called Standing O Tribute, all life lessons of gratitude. And then our fifth book comes out hopefully this year. So it's just been a fun, interesting way to give back, probably an outlierish way to give back, trying to figure out how do I leverage these friendships of people that have, collectively, probably 100 million social media followers across the four books. That shines a very big spotlight on these organizations. And then we're able to give all the proceeds to charity, but also give them recognition. And, it's just such a fun thing to do.
Yeah. And I mean, the written word and stories of gratitude from people who've just had incredible careers and lives, that continues to ripple, right? When you put out a book, it just continues to ripple out over the years as more people have access to it and gain that information. That's such a great way to give back. Um, Gratitude, speaking of, is kind of the core theme of my podcast. How has
Yep.
practicing gratitude played a role in your professional and your personal life?
It's just how I think every day. Gratitude is just such an ingrained. So I think because I've faced a tremendous amount of adversity in my life, you have
Hmm.
a choice. You can be a victim, which is very, very seductive because being a victim means that you don't have to take responsibility. You don't have to be held accountable because
Yeah.
you can say, well, my life is not what I want it to be, but that's because I have a bad boss or I work for a terrible company or, I had this health issue or whatever the case may be. If you decide you're not going to have a victim's mentality, you have to take personal responsibility and you have to realize that your life is your life because of the choices that you've decided to make. And I look at everything, I was talking to Austin about this. No matter what has happened in my life, when we didn't know where my son was and we knew that he was somewhere and he was very likely using heroin and homeless. That's a pretty low point, but in all of those low moments, I've always thought if I look behind me at the line of people that would take my place in a nanosecond, that line would be so long I would never see the end of it. So when you focus on that, you realize, boy, how lucky am I to live the life
Hmm.
that I'm living. And so I just live life with a tremendous amount of gratitude. I'm just so grateful for all the wonderful things that happened to me, which include the ability to tell my story on your podcast, which hopefully will have a ripple effect and will, help one person to deal with whatever it is that they're dealing with in life. So gratitude is everything. If you focus on gratitude, it's hard to have a bad day.
It
It really
is.
is.
Even in those moments of struggle, and I think that the lesson of gratitude deepens in times of struggle because when I look at a gratitude journal before my son died, because I've always kind of journaled and tried to live a positive life. I found it to be very shallow when I looked back over it.
Mm-hmm.
When my son died, it changed, it shifted completely, and I started looking at gratitude in a different light. I started looking at it as a way to tether me to the present moment, and so I wasn't thinking about the regret of the past or all the hurt, and I wasn't thinking about the worry of the future and what was gonna happen. I was right here, right now, and I was okay. So it deepens, that expression of thankfulness, and when you look around, you're not thankful for anything materialistic. I mean, however fortunate, and I feel very thankful for the life that I have as well, but I'm grateful for the love of my son. I'm grateful for, my younger son is living in the UK now and just living life out loud, and I'm so happy for him. But there's nothing materialistic about any of it once you get to that deep level, is there?
To me, there's not. I mean, I'm bound and determined not to sleepwalk through life. I want to live an extraordinary life, and my version of an extraordinary life is a life of impact because I'm fully convinced that at the end of the day, no one's really going to care about the businesses that I've built, and they're not going to care about the books I've written, and they're not going to care about the house I live in or the car I drive. They're going to care about the impact that I made, and the businesses that I've built have allowed me to have an impact. But being on a podcast like this, it's all about impact. It's the material things really don't mean anything. It's all, how can we make somebody's life better?
Mm.
How can we impart uh, a positive mindset so that people are living their version of an extraordinary life? I mean, that to me is what it's all about.
I couldn't agree more. So how do you balance the demands of you have, multiple ventures going on. So how do you balance it all and still stay true to your mission?
It's all the same. Those things, those platforms give me the opportunity uh, to have an impact. So Outlier Magazine is a platform for me to celebrate outliers, and that's
Yeah.
a platform to inspire people. The Outlier Project, with 700 and something members, is a platform that allows me to have an impact. Something new is a platform that allows me to have an impact. So I see it as kind of all integrated. um, I don't really separate. Like, my life is my life, and my life is, my wife, my kids, my businesses, the things that I spend my time doing. I don't pull them apart. I do the things that I want to do that make me happy, that bring me joy,
Mhm.
and those are almost always things that I think will leave a positive impact on the world, because that's the legacy I want to leave.
Absolutely. So, like, what are your hopes and dreams for the future of something new, the Outlier Project, and something good? So, where do you want to see this? What's your vision?
Yes, something new is a company that's kind of on autopilot. The vast majority of my attention is on the Outlier Project. The Outlier Project is extremely scalable, and I've built businesses before to very large numbers of employees. To be perfectly honest, I don't want to do that ever again. That's not interesting to me.
Yep.
But building a community is very, very scalable. And I just really feel like the impact that I can make is far greater. So I'm kind of all chips in on the Outlier Project.
Yeah.
Um, because it just affords me the opportunity to make an impact on the biggest amount of people. So that's where I spend the vast majority of my time. I have an incredible team at Something New that, you know, does a great job. They don't need a lot of my help. And that's a well-established business that I've had for 10 years. So yeah, I'm focused a lot more on the Outlier Project and Outlier Magazine today.
That's beautiful because you're focusing on, the people aspect. I'm going to switch it up a little bit now because I did read on your bio you have the cutest. It's the greatest thing if people go to your website because you have this little thing that you tell, little things that I wouldn't know about you. Um, So you said, I'm pretty awesome at Brady Bunch and sports trivia, and I'm ready to take on any challengers. Okay, so you ready?
I'm ready. I'm
All right.
ready.
What was the name of the family dog in the Brady Bunch?
Tiger.
Ooh,
Here's a better one. What was the name of the cat? No one knows this.
I don't know this.
People don't even know they had a cat.
I can't remember a cat. I don't know.
Pandora.
Pandora?
Pandora was the name.
Hmm.
And there's a scene where they're calling Pandora, here, Pandora, here, Pandora. Anyway, um, I know my Brady Bunch trivia.
Okay. Let's see. So can you name the children?
I can Bobby, Cindy, Jan, you know, Greg, Peter. I don't know who I'm missing. Alice, obviously the
Marsha,
maid.
Marsha, Marsha.
Yeah, such a great show, right?
Oh, it
Marsha,
was so
Marsha,
great.
Marsha, Marsha.
Um, and the other thing when I was reading through this list, so thank you. You've proven your knowledge with the Brady Bunch. So I appreciate you just like on the fly doing that for me. The other thing I wanna point out, I hung out with Barry Manilow in Vegas. Pictures can be sent on request. Okay, I'm requesting now. I want a
Yep,
picture.
I'll send it to you.
What was it like to hang out with Barry Manilow? Because I love his music.
So it was 1 o'clock in the morning. We're in the Paris hotel, and I guess he was performing there. And we were a group of us were having a cocktail and just talking. And I said to the group, I'm like, I think that's Barry Manilow. And they're like, no. And so I went over and I introduced myself. And anyway, he came over to the bar and we hung out with him, and just a just a great guy, very, very down to earth, and a fun moment. So I will be texting you a picture of
I
me with
can't
Barry
wait.
Manilow from whatever it was 15 years ago.
I will watch for that picture. Um, what is one question you wish I asked but didn't, and how would you have answered?
That's a great question. You asked a lot of great questions. Um, you know, I don't know. I always feel like these opportunities, because there's time constraints,
Yeah,
uh, always don't give an opportunity typically to tell the full story, which is most impactful. Um, and I feel like when I have one-on-one conversations and I can really help somebody who maybe they have a significant other, could be a child or whoever that's struggling with drug addiction, or anything like that, or a health issue, or anything, when you really are able to talk in depth about it, I feel like that's really helpful. So I love doing podcasts, but it's just the time constraints don't allow us to go deep enough, and I think that's
yeah.
where there's tremendous impact. So it's not
It's
necessarily a question that wasn't asked. It's just the
it's just the
inability to
time.
really dive deep.
And I love the idea of the Outlier project is something that does go a little deeper, right? Like you told me some stories about the people who are in the Outlier project, and that um, there's no time constraint on that, which is beautiful.
No, we have 200 live interactive virtual events a year, 200,
Oh
and
my
about
god.
14 in-person meetups, everything from a humanity expedition in Nicaragua to a retreat to, we're going to the Head of the Charles next week, the regatta in Boston, and then we go to skate in Rockefeller Center in December, and then we go to the Army Navy game together, and we have a meetup in Miami coming up, and all kinds of just really wonderful, fun things where we can really, really help uplift each other. It's just it's incredibly fun.
Oh my gosh, that sounds amazing. So, in my global gratitude group, just one little thing. I ask people every day what their one little thing that they're grateful for, and the reason I say one little thing is because when I started this, um, some days I could only find one little thing to be
Mm-hmm.
thankful for. So today, I mean, I'm so thankful for this incredible conversation and your honesty. I'm thankful the sun is shining, and I'm also thankful that we have the ability to help people who are suffering right now because of hurricanes and climate change. So those are my things that I'm thankful for today. What are you thankful for?
I'm always most thankful, probably for my wife is unbelievably supportive. I have a lot of things on my plate, and I have lots of creative ideas. Some may call them crazy ideas. And she's supportive through and through. But this is going to sound a little bit odd, but I am truly grateful for all the adversity that I've gone through in life, because none of the good stuff would have happened without the bad stuff.
Yeah.
It shaped all the decisions that I've made have been because of that adversity. And I think I'm grateful for the mindset of understanding that when I'm going through a hard time, I just think of it like, okay, Scott, you're in the gym, you're building those muscles that are going to allow you to deal with the next adversity. So what, 9/11, that was an adversity that I had to face in running a company that did a lot of business in New York and things of that nature. And, we lost a lot of clients and things like that. And then you've got COVID, and you've got an economic downturn, and you've got you're always going to have adversity. But I think when you consistently make it through all this personal and professional adversity, you just realize, boy, I'm built and I'm stronger, and I'm going to be able to withstand that next body blow that's coming, because it's always coming. And that's going to serve the people that I care about, my family, my employees, my community, better, because I'm going to be able to respond appropriately, because I've built up that resiliency muscle.
That's so beautiful. Before we close out, can you tell our listeners how they can find you and the Outlier Project and all your work?
Yeah, you can find LinkedIn's the best place to find me. So it's my platform of choice. You can certainly find me on Instagram, but yeah, connect with me on LinkedIn. Send me a note if you're interested in finding out more about the Outlier Project. I'm happy to have those conversations, or you can go to the outlierproject.co. So it's not .com, it's .co. And you can find out about, to me, the most beautiful community out there that just does nothing but uplift everybody. And it's a group of like-hearted people, not like-minded. So you've got a real opportunity to learn and grow. And I would encourage anybody to take a look at it. It's a fabulous group of people.
That say that again. Like-hearted, not like-minded.
Like-hearted. We have, we're the Outlier Project. We're not, we all think the same. By creating a space where divergent thinking is accepted and actually embraced, I always say we have like-hearted members. We do not have like-minded members. And I think it's the beauty of the community is that there are a lot of wonderful communities that are very specific. So let's say SHRM, which is all HR people. That's a great community, but it's all HR people. They tend to think in very similar ways.
Right.
When you put 750 people together, that some work for Apple and some work at Nike and some are entrepreneurs and some are teachers and some are just stay-at-home moms or dads, and some are in finance and some are in IT and some are in sales and marketing, you wind up learning a whole ton of stuff. Because so everyone has to be like-hearted, but not like-minded. I'm looking for people that have great hearts to join us, not that all think the same. That's insanely boring to me.
It is.
and not that interesting. But lighthearted's important.
I love that. And I love the fact that, you're embracing the differences, because that's what we need to do. That's how we move forward in a more positive way, right? When we can take feedback from people who don't necessarily have the same idea that we have of what will work, and we can learn from each other. I absolutely love it, and I'm going to your website after we finish the podcast, because it's fantastic.
It's a
So,
fun place to be.
Scott, thank you so much for being on the show, and just being so generous with your time and your story and your wisdom. I know it's going to help so many of our listeners. I really do.
Kelly, I love what you're doing. I love how you're honoring Stephen. It's beautiful. And so whatever I can do to support you, if there's anything I can do to be a resource to you, this podcast that you've created and this mission that you're on is going to impact a lot of people. And that's a beautiful thing.
Thank you so much. Thank you so much. All right, everybody. We will see you next time on Broken Beautiful Me. Thanks for being here.